Everyone, my name is Annie McCann. I'm an avid reader, blogger, emerging writer, MC, and one of the co-founders of a network called the TRPC, which is the Right Pen Collective. When I'm not doing that, I'm also the founder of a network of readers called Readers Review. But today I'm actually wearing my TRPC hat because I'm actually really excited to be here and introduce us as the Australia Reads Ambassadors for 2021. So Australia Reads is a unique Australian book industry collaboration sharing a common passion, which is championing of reading. With their motto of more books, more often, this year Australia Reads celebrates stories that matter. So on the 14th of September 2021, Australia celebrates reading by simply dropping everything and reading for an hour. And so to celebrate this amazing initiative, they have selected particular ambassadors for Australia Reads 2021. And it's really exciting to be here, and I'm very honoured to share the stage with these lovely ladies who I'm honoured to call friends. These are three amazing talented authors that are also Australia Reads ambassadors and members of TRPC. First, the co-founder, Ozge Alkan. She's also an author coming to us live from the Wurundjeri land, which is in Victoria. Second, we have Melati Lum, who is also an author coming to us live from Ghana land in South Australia. And last but not least, we have Inda Ahmad Zahri, who is also an author coming to us live from Yagura country in Queensland. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
How are we all going?
Really good.
Really good. I'm really happy to be here too. It's amazing to, like I said, share the stage with you, not just as friends, not just as writers, but also as Australia Reads ambassadors for 2021. So Ozge, if I can start with you, can you tell us what it means to you to be an Australian Reads ambassador for 2021?
Well, I looked at the Australia Reads program, and it says it's a unique collaboration between booksellers, libraries, and authors. And I'm like, I tick all of those boxes because I used to be a bookseller, and I am currently a librarian, and I am also an author. So anything books related and anything that gets people reading more, it's absolutely exciting. And I just absolutely adore the idea of all Australians being invited to read for an hour instead of doing anything else we could be doing. I just absolutely adore that idea, and it's just so exciting that I'm an ambassador for this and I get to champion it by being an author, a librarian, and an ex-bookseller.
Yes, it's like get off the iPad, get off the video games, pick up a book and read. Now, Ozge, you are an author. Tell us a bit about what you have written so far.
I have co-authored a book with Australian author Hazel Edwards, and this is my book baby. And it's called Hijabi Girl. I ended up writing this book when I was working at an Islamic school librarian, and we were celebrating book week each year, and my students just couldn't find a character that wore a hijab they could just come dressed up as. Of course, this was before, Melati's book and other people's books that started having more and more hijabis in there, but this was the first that we did because there wasn't anything like that. And I also wanted to give her a bit more of a personality, so she actually wants to start her own foodie team in the school as well. So it's a mixture of a girl who likes to read and a girl who likes to take initiative and do her own thing. This book is getting reissued to coincide with the book being turned into a Sesame Street Muppet style puppet show. It's going to be in Queensland, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, you can go before I get to go there.
I would love it because my daughter, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she loves, she's just started reading this year since she's been in prep. So she loves books, but she loves footy. She loves soccer.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be awesome.
They turned the footy actually into, there's a footy ball that's actually one of the puppets as well that sings a song called Cheer Them On. So it's this really cool rock song.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing.
It is it does such an amazing job, and it's American Puppets in Queensland who turned this into a puppet show.
Awesome.
That is amazing. And I've read it as an adult, and I saw myself in that because I'm a hijabi girl myself, and I love my footy, but NRL, but that's a different story.
we'll leave our differences aside for today.
Different states, of course. And look, this is really exciting because, like I said before, Ozge is one of the co-founders of the Right Pen Collective, and I was really honoured that she contacted me to be part of group as well, because Ozge and I actually share the same idea that we're both readers, we're both writers, yet we've yet to see more Muslim representation, particularly in children's books, because that's something I never grew up with, which we'll talk about soon. And I love the vision that it did tell us before. We'd love to see more publications by talented Muslims just as regularly as we see Vegemite on our supermarket shelves. I love it. I think it's amazing. And look, congratulations on that adaptation. I'm really looking forward to that. And also congratulations for being Australia Reads Ambassador for the year. Welcome.
It's so exciting to be here.
Melati Lum, please tell us a bit more about yourself and what it means to you to be an Australia Reads Ambassador.
I'm just the author of the Aisha Dean Mysteries. So the first one is this one here, the Istanbul Intrigue, and it came out in 2016. And I've got 3 books in the series now. I've got the Seville Secret and then the Lisbon Lawbreaker, which is the latest one. And I just, the reason why, and I think the reason why all of us are here is that we didn't see enough Muslim representation in the Australian publishing industry, and that was important. And as for me growing up as a child and not seeing any Muslim representation in children's books at that time that was a big deal for me. I've always loved reading, and when my son grew up and when he got to the age Aisha Dean Mysteries are set at like a middle-aged group, and when he got to about that age, there was still not that much out there. So I just thought that, why not? We need more. And to be an Australian Reads Ambassador is it's just wonderful. I feel like there's still not that much representation in the Australian publishing industry of people of colour or people from the Muslim or from any background, other kind of backgrounds that aren't the majority culture here. And so to be a representative from those communities, but also part of the wider picture of Australia reading and promoting a reading culture in Australia is just, it's just wonderful.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I'd like to thank you personally for writing Aisha Dean, because I'm Indonesian Australian, and that was the first time I ever saw an Indonesian Australian book, and I read that in my adulthood. So that's saying something. So thank you. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Sama-sama.
Amazing. Again, congratulations for being here, and I 100% agree with what both Ozge and Melati are saying at the moment, that we need more representation. And don't get us wrong, we have read a lot of diverse reads by all cultures and faiths, and we're very diverse readers ourselves, but it's something special when you see yourself represented in a book, I have to say. And I think we're starting to get there. Last but not least, Inda Ahmad Zahri, it's a little bit different for you because you're a picture book author. Do tell us about yourself, and again, what it means to you to be an Australia Reads Ambassador.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Inda, and I'm originally from Malaysia, but I live in Brisbane now. I do write picture books, and I'm working on a middle grade series as well. And my middle grade series happens to be set in Malaysia, so I'm hoping to bring a little bit more of that visibility of people from different backgrounds, people who share my background, into kind of the mainstream, English language literature market. So I'll tell you a little bit about my books. I've got 2 books out this year, alhamdulillah. So the first one is Saleh. So Saleh came out in March this year, and it's about a refugee boy. So there's a turtle there because as he leaves home, he pretends that he's a turtle carrying his home on his back, in order to kind of, I guess, dampen down the sadness of actually having to flee from your homelands because of danger. So I was really happy that this got picked up by a traditional publisher, and I love the fact that they've kept the title there, which is Saleh, a Muslim boy's name. It's a name that I grew up with. It means goodness in Arabic, and in my home country you wouldn't bat an eyelid, but it's introducing that now to the current vernacular. So I feel really grateful about that. And the topic of refugees has always been something that's been quite dear to my heart. I started learning more about it and volunteering when I was in university in England. And, you know, a lot of people feel really passionate about the treatment of refugees. And we all know that in Australia, there's a lot of controversial stuff that happens, like community detention. People come here from all over the world because they're trying to seek safety, and yet they come here and they arrive here, and you know, the struggle's not over yet. So I wanted to write something that was hopeful. So that's solid. And then I'm very excited that at the end of the month, Nightlights is coming out. So this is beautifully illustrated by, so Sally was illustrated by Anne Ryan, who's a Melbourne artist, and another Melbourne illustrator, Leslie McGee, did this book. So Nightlights was the first ever picture book manuscript that I wrote. And the reason why I got into writing is because I had my little girl. She's 6 years old now, but just before she turned 2, we went back to Malaysia on holiday, and I was looking for picture books about Malaysia to bring home, and I didn't really find anything from sort of like, you know, the mainstream bookstores. They were all a little bit textbooky, and I thought maybe I can write something just for us. I came back to Australia, and there happened to be this workshop on picture book writing by Elisa Darlison at our local library, which is why librarians and libraries are so awesome. You know, I learned so much. I learned so much about it. There's like so much I didn't know. But then Elisa also said, you know, what are you thinking of writing? And I said, oh, I'm thinking of writing this book in Malay because I want something that my daughter can kind of, you know, cherish as she grows older. And she said, well, why don't you write it in English? Because there'll be some interest in diverse stories here. So I thought I gave it a crack, and I submitted it. It got picked up by Little Pink Dog Books, and here it is. And I suspect, I haven't asked Leslie, and I really should, but I suspect that's actually me on a cover.
Totally.
So literally, instead of saying, I wish there was someone like me on the cover, I think that's little me on the cover. So I hope that you know, little kids who have Malaysian families or backgrounds here in Australia would be able to pick up this book and kind of have a glimpse at kampung life. So kampung is our Malaysian village. That's our word for village. I think it's the same in Indonesian as well. Yeah, and see, you know, the characters who are the grandparents dressed in the Malaysian garb and the Malaysian houses and all the beautiful Malaysian flowers and nature. And I just can't wait for this book to go out in the world.
I can't wait for a copy. I've been trying to like grab a copy of that through the screen. Sorry, it's just not working. But
yeah. So I was also gonna say, in terms of Muslim representation in book characters, both these books have Muslim characters in it. It's not like outwardly Muslim. I'm not trying to, you know, kind of preach anything Islamic through the stories in these particular ones, but sometimes it's enough just for them to be there, just for those characters to be there, you know, in the mix.
It's one of those things where it's like this is why I end up, you know, writing the hijabi girl, because I'm like, I just want Muslim kids doing normal things like Melati did, you know, just going out there, you know, solving mysteries and kicking butt, you know, where she's just there, you know, with the character.
It wasn't really me, it was Aisha.
Like, so not like kick butt or anything, but just having, you know, Aisha out there, you know, with her friends who happen not to be Muslim, you know, and that's just that's exactly what we were after. And you know, I'll talk about what Annie's up to, but I'm so excited. Yeah, what you're up to?
Yeah,
are we allowed to know, Annie? Is it like
you're allowed to know what's happening? So at this stage, well, first I wanted to thank Inda for that. Thank you so much, and congratulations for being on board.
Thank you.
Ambassador. And just to stem on what Inda was saying, it's exactly what we're saying all along. The whole idea of Muslim representation in reading is not to be preachy and not to, you know, get on a podium. It's pretty much drawing a parallel to life, that these are actual human beings who have lives, who do this, that, and the other. We just happen to be Muslim. We're not all crazy. We actually have lives. And we do.
Muslims aren't crazy. Let's be clear.
Speak for yourself.
We're just people. We're just people We go to school, we go to work, and we just happen to practice our faith as well. Not all of us wear hijabs. Some do, some don't. We have a choice in that era. And that's pretty much what we're trying to capture here, and get away from that, the propaganda or the stereotypical type of thing. In terms of what I'm doing, so I'm not yet a published author, but I'm very excited that Australia Reads had chosen me to be one of their ambassadors, because I'm a very big avid reader, and I really champion reading through both networks that I run with Ozge, TRPC, and of course with Readers Review. But what I did was I actually submitted a manuscript to the Write It Fellowship, which was run by Penguin Random House in 2019. Yes, 2019. I know, it's like, who knows?
Who knows anymore?
And they were specifically looking for unpublished, diverse own voices. So they were looking for people who had never been published before that wrote from themselves. It ranged from, cultural, linguistically diverse, which is where I fit in, and it went from disability, low socioeconomic, Indigenous, LGBTIQA. It was very diverse. And I don't quite know how many entries there were, but there were quite a lot. They got it down to a long list of 12. That was about April. And I was on that long list, like, oh, they chose me. Okay, cool. So I had a month to get the rest of the manuscript to them. Like, yeah, okay, I'm still writing this manuscript. How am I going to get this to them in a month? Like, what am I doing? So anyway, I did my best, and I wound it up as much as I could, sent it through. And then unbeknown to me, come June, I was actually selected as one of the winners of the Write It Fellowship.
Yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. So it is a marathon, not a sprint. And I've been working on shaping my book from then until now. So what my book is, it's a middle grade own voices adventure story that is centered around a character by the name of Aisha. Did not steal that from Melati. It's I want to confirm that. And essentially what it is very much like me. So she's Indonesian Australian. She's got a cousin who's like a brother to her. And what they don't realize is that they're actually descended from royal lineage in West Java, Indonesia. That is actually my family history. So my mother is descended from royalty in West Java, Indonesia, and her ancestor, who's Prabu.
You're Princess Annie.
Not quite.
Queen Annie.
Not quite.
Queen Annie. Yeah, why Princess Queen Annie?
No, not quite. But Prabu Raja Siliwangi is my ancestor. So my mother's ancestor. Father, and his legend is connected to the harimau, which is in West Java, and pretty much a lot of Indonesians know that legend, and that is actually my family legend. So that was me capturing this family legend of mine into transporting that into a middle grade adventure novel, and how they basically find their way back to the ancestor, learning about their history and themselves through interesting things like a box that the cousin was told not to touch. Of course he touched it. Found all this stuff he shouldn't have been looking at, and ended up transporting back to 15th century Indonesia, where the Prabu Raja Siliwangi was. So it's with an editor, and I'm still waiting for feedback from my editor, but it's actually one step up because the fellowship is done and I've moved to now. So.
Annie, I'm getting goosebumps listening to that storyline. I think, that's going to be so amazing. I can't wait.
Inda's book, I would have picked that book from your brain. Like I was reading Inda's book.
And you know what? As you were talking about that, I realized that in Saleh, there's a character called Aisha. Like,
Aisha is everywhere. She's one of the best.
All right, hijabi girl too. I'm going to edit it now and add it.
Aisha. We have to call it the Aisha Collective.
Yes, I have to say.
We could do a collection, Aisha stories.
Aisha stories.
Love it. I've also written a picture book as well. I handed that into my editor as well, waiting to hear back.
Again, fingers crossed, inshallah.
Inshallah, capturing a West Javanese legend as well. But it was the making of a volcano that was in West Java, and the story in terms of how it was created is a legend. It's something that's really well known in
Mount Bromo, is it?
No,
Bromo?
No, Bromo is central. This is Tangkuban Prahabu. God, I have a bad Australian accent. I never say it right. But it's a very interesting legend. So it's I can't even shorten the legend. I'm gonna have to tell you what that legend is later. But it's
all right. We'll stay on after this and listen to you talk, Annie.
It's how it was created is a very interesting legend that's been told from generation to generation, and I was hoping to capture that in a picture book. So
inshallah, we'll get to read it.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm not yet a published author, but inshallah I am on the path becoming one. So, but it is reading stories from the three of you, of course, and hearing about your journey. It's really, really inspiring for people who haven't yet written anything or are still yet to be published. And, you know, there is such a big scream for more Muslim representation. I mean, I feel as a reader, we have come a fair way in terms of, like, from the time I started Reader's Review, 2009, to now, we have come a fair way, but I feel that there is still work that needs to be done in terms of diversity and representation. So we've discussed writing and what, you know, being an Australia Reads Ambassador means to you. What does reading mean to you? Why is reading such a very big part of your life? Anybody can take the floor on this one. Why reading?
I think on you. I want to hear you.
Why reading? Why not reading? Because I love words. I love words, and I think that words have power.
It comes through in your books, in the, like, when I read some.
Oh, thank you.
Because you just kind of read it through once, but then you kind of read it like with, like, okay, let me, you know, it's like you watch a magician do a trick. You're just kind of watching it. Like, how did you do that? I think that's, I don't know.
That's very kind of you.
Read something I really like, I'm like, how did you do that? Hang on, let me go back and look at this. And you kind of try to figure out, and you can just tell you like the words. Just like,
thank you so much. No, absolutely. I really feel like words have power, you know, and there's so many different styles, and I read very widely. I like literary fiction, that's my favorite, but I read really widely, and obviously now I read a lot of children's book as well. And it's just, it really transports you to a different world. And so I love words, but I love them in different languages as well. So I like learning different languages. I like, even if it's just a few words. In those days when planes were in the sky and we used to be able to travel, you know, whenever I'd land somewhere new, I'd always try to kind of learn something else about that place, because the world is just, it's just so vast and it's just so amazing, and the differences between us is what makes it so rich and so enticing. And books can do that all the time, anytime, any day. So that's why I love reading.
Yeah,
I think that's it, isn't it? It's like you have a life that you live, and you know, we're lucky enough to be living in a place where we don't necessarily have you know, warplanes flying overhead and all these things happening to us. But, you know, when you read, you can have the experiences of living other lives as well. Like you are able to see things from people with different points of view that you might not have considered before, and, you know, read about people from different cultures and different ways of doing things, and just different ways of thinking. Like, we've all got different personalities, and it's just so interesting to get into someone else's head sometimes.
Yeah.
It's really nice to leave your own head. Like, I'm a big believer in, you know,
especially in lockdown.
Escape. You know, it's like, I am like the current book. I just finished almost reading a book that's just, you know, about set in this, you know, there's like a murder, and, you know, there's like the Hollywood movie scripts and things. Oh, that's the thing I'm never gonna live in. But it's just really fascinating to get in the head of someone else and go like, you know, what if? And I recently was reading a book about, you know, learning to write, because I'm a bit like, you know, Hermione, but if there's something new, to the library, you know, not that I'm going to write. It's like I'm going to read everything that's ever written on writing. But the book I'm reading, it's by Lisa Cron, and it actually talks about, they have scientifically shown that when you're reading the book, you're actually, your body feels like you are that person, you know, when they jump, you're jumping with them, when they you're feeling, you're going along with them. And the theory they had with, like, why do we tell stories, is because it lets your brain kind of rehearse and get a feel for things just in case you live through it. I don't know if you guys did, but when I was a kid, I used to read those survival books. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make notice. If I'm ever stuck in an island, I'm like, no.
I had that. It was a spy book. It's like How to Be a Spy. And I totally thought I was going to grow up and be a spy. It's like how to do your hair, like change the fringe so that people won't recognize you.
Exactly, and it's just, yeah, taking you into another world, but also, you know, grounds it as well. Like, I don't read sometimes I read a fiction that just makes me go, okay, I need to read some fantasy now, because it just really, like, punches you in the guts, takes you to the places that I'm probably never gonna have to go myself. And it's just, okay. give me some fantasy. Take me away from me.
I read fiction, and I read fiction because I live a very busy life. So fiction, for me, particularly fantasy fiction, is a healthy escapism. That's what I like to call it, because we all do things to escape the real world. We watch TV, we play games, etc. For me, reading is, when you're reading, yes, you are immersed in a real, a world that may not be real, but it expands your mind. It broadens your mind, your vocabulary. You don't realize it's expanding when you're reading. It's actually very refreshing for your mind as well. So it's a very, healthy escapism for me. But also what I love about reading is the community that it forms. So, and I saw that with Reader's Review and now with TRPC, where, I've met like-minded people who love reading, and we read together. Like, even with Reader's Review, we have little pocket groups within Reader's Review who do a little buddy read for a book that's coming out. Like Melati and I think we're going to do our Violent Ends read along. I think that's what we'll be doing. A book, that we all know that we're highly anticipated for, and it's that sense of community as well, and the friends that you meet through reading. I mean, I even make friends in a bookstore. Like, I just happen to be in a bookstore, and I'm like,
so you're that person.
I'm that person.
And you can make friends with anybody.
I was going to say, you probably can make friends with the bookshelf that's behind you, and I'm surprised.
Yeah, we're very close. I remember being in a bookshop, and I pick up a book I was reading, and the girl next to me picked up a book that I had read, and I told her, oh my God, that book is amazing. Like, you need to read this. You need to get this now. And then that went from, oh, so where are you from? How are you going? Blah, blah, blah. And we've been friends ever since. So it's just
God, I miss work so much. I miss work so much. They close my libraries, and this is exactly what I love in the library. When a person comes to the desk and they're just like, they want to reserve, I don't know, next book in the series, and I'm just like, let's talk about this. This is awesome. It's I miss that.
Why did they close? Why did they close your library? Is it like pandemic related?
It's
COVID. We're not allowed to breathe.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Queenslander.
Yes.
Can I just say, okay, so I'm sharing now that I've got newborn twins. They're about 3 months old. They scream a lot. They need lots of attention all the time. And so for the whole week, I've been with them, and I've been like trying to kind of like fit in a little bit of this and that, but obviously they're number one priority. So on Friday, my husband's at home. He got to work from home, and the nanny was coming in for a few hours, and I thought, this is my chance. I've got the morning off because he's got something to do in the afternoon, blah, 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 blah. I've got the morning off on Friday. Do you know where I went to? The library. This is how cool my life is right now. I went to the library for 3 hours. And the 1 window.
I really approve. That is, what do you think I do on my days off? I take my kids to the library.
I was thinking bookstore, but library is just as good. Library is just as good. No,
this is awesome.
I want to get to because we've all been to the library, so I want to hear, as a reader walking into a library, how have you seen, I guess, reading evolve in the time with Muslim representation? Do you see more on the shelf now with libraries than before, you would say?
Yes, absolutely, definitely. I got a thing. I think it was YPR left out like this hot reads or hot picks or something, books that's just really hot that you can't read. You can get only for a short amount of time. And it was some burnt whales that I got that had that hot pick sticker on it, and I'm like, yes, just with the hijab on the cover of a young adult book, and it's like, it's a hot pick,
I remember a time when there was just like, you'd have to pick that one book. You'd know that there'd be 1 or 2 books that you could probably go, and you go in there and get that. But now, I mean, it's still not as much as I'd like to see, but there are plenty of Muslim books that I haven't read yet, and that are on my TBR, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So to get to that point is just it's progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I look at Inda as progress, because when I was a child, I didn't see any picture books that featured a Malaysian Muslim kid. Like, I mean, I'm Asian, and I would have been happy to see a Malaysian, because something close up, and I didn't even see that when I was a kid.
I picked up The Proudest Blue in our library, which is the most hearts all over, the most beautiful
blown
book.
Away. I have 2 copies of it. One to read and one to just keep safe.
Oh.
So you're that person
So I loved it so much. I bought my own copy as well, but I read it in a library, and it's just the most beautiful book. And I love that it's there, you know, like kind of like front and center. There's a beautiful flowing blue hijab, much like Ozge is wearing right now. And that's just absolutely amazing. And I think there is a you know, a space for it for sure. And we're being encouraged, I think, to do that. I mean, I work with a literary agent, and my agent, we were just discussing, I think I put up a post during Ramadan about what Ramadan means to us. And she says, well, there are books out there about Ramadan, but, you know, there can be more from different perspectives, from an Australian perspective and stuff like that. So, you know, that's something that I really like to work on later in the year.
I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the things that I said to Ozge as we were putting this together was one of the first things to get TRPC off the ground is a virtual festival, which will look very much something like this in the coming weeks, inshallah. But something that I'm dying to do is put together an anthology that is written by members from the TRPC. And I'm thinking, because we do have an anthology, like one called Once Upon an Eid, which I love and adored. And I'm just going to toot my own horn. I was the first person in Australia to read that. Thank you. Yes, I was doing a vlogging for the Nerd Daily. Shout out to Elise. Thank you so much for organizing Abraham Books to send me a printed copy from America. I was the very first person in Australia to read it. I was very excited. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's an international book. And we do have one called Coming of Age in Australia that was edited here in Australia, but there were more high profile Muslim people. And I would really just love to see one that's written by, you know, writers just like us. I would love to see it, and you know, to see the RPC logo. I'm like, yes.
Inshallah. On Inda's point about the thing on Ramadan books, like I was actually I have a picture book manuscript that I haven't actually finished it, but I'm working on it. It's another Eid story, and I thought, oh, there's already a few Eid books. And I thought, hold up, how many Christmas books are there?
Exactly.
There's so many Christmas books that are coming out.
Yeah,
I'm kind of thinking from like the minority point of view of like, oh, no, there's already one Eid book, they should be done. They would have published. Hold up, hang on, excuse me. You know,
I
That's
know.
true.
Yeah.
Every year they bring out Christmas
A
books.
new one.
Every year they bring out
Easter
new
books.
music.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what can
Yeah.
you know? So anyway, that's my other manuscript. It's
That's
about-
true. I mean, Father's Day is Father's Day today, and there's Father's Day books, new ones every year, Mother's Day.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, they're celebrations for a reason. You know, they really kind of like uplift us. They mean something different to different children. And I think there's like lots of stories to be told.
And
I would
the
like
beauty.
Catalog for Eid, an Eid catalog. Everybody, here are the list of books that you all should get from Eid, and featuring Ozge, featuring Inda, featuring Melati. Like, these are all Muslim books that need to be on a catalog.
Inshallah, we're absolutely getting there. It's happening.
Well, it's not impossible. It is not impossible.
Not impossible.
We are living proof that it can happen in Australia. We are living proof of actually
And there's
connecting.
interest. That there's interest in this story. That's what's so exciting. And when we first had Hijab the Girl, it was like we had so many comments of good story, there's no interest. Good story, it won't sell. Good story, like we were like, we received nothing but compliments about the book, but everybody was going, there's not a market for it. I'm just so glad that we're at a point now where it's like,
Yeah.
there is the market.
Yeah.
It's being
That's how Ozge and I met, was through Hijabi Girl. I was very excited.
Aw.
Shout out to Juliet M. Sampson, because she was the one who actually got me a copy of your book, and I had she wrote her email in it. I was like, oh yes, I need to stalk her. I mean, I need to contact her.
Yes, you know, whatever.
I say that a lot. Yeah, this is very exciting. Like, it is very true what you're saying, that I think times have changed, you know, because I grew up in Australia, and you know, growing up a Muslim in the Western world wasn't all that bad, but it was also a struggle for me too, because I suffer what they call the third party cultural syndrome, where, you know, I'm too white to be Indonesian, but I'm more Indonesian than a lot of Indonesians I know. And I even remember going to school, you know, with an Australian father who is Muslim, by the way, and people would not believe that I was Muslim. Like, it was not possible because I was Australian. Like, it didn't happen. And there weren't any of these stories that were on our bookshelf that would say, you know, Indonesian Australian Muslim. That is possible. That is actually
Yeah, that's true.
it wasn't
That's
until now
true.
that I've seen it. So I
Go
feel
blaze that trail, Andy. Go. You know, what is it? Go where nobody's gonna leave footsteps, so we can just follow along. You know, it's kind of like, you know, looking at. Actually, I came from America, and you know, I remember shelving in the library, and I just actually stopped dead looking at Ramda's book with this hijabi girl on the cover. And I'm like, really? Like this book exists? Because up until now, you know, all the sort of Muslim characters I've seen, they're all disliking their identities, they're trying to change, you know, sneak away to a party. My parents are Muslim. I looked at this book, here's a story about a Muslim young girl who's happy with who she is. And I'm like, this is actually
It's
possible.
very
Like,
affirming.
this is allowed. This gets published. Like, they're gonna publish this, you know, because it's almost like, am I allowed to just be proud of my hijab or just be proud of being Muslim? Like, can I be published by just saying that? Like, I don't just have to go against my own identity to be published. It was just like one of those moments for
I
me.
have to say, Randa was pretty much for a long time. Randa was the only Muslim
The
author.
only one.
Yeah, would we all agree? So shout out to Randa Abdel Fattah.
Randa!
We love you. Thank you for paving the way for the rest of us, because you made us see that it's not impossible. But like I'm saying, like with all three of you talking to you, listening to you, it is very inspiring, because the common theme I'm hearing is, I'm waiting for the day that somebody will write something that will represent me. Oh, forget it. I'll do it myself. I'm going to write this. I'm going to do this. And you owned your stories and you showed the world you are unapologetically Muslim, but you're just like everybody else. And that's what I love to see. And I see that in your work. I see that in the books as well. So it's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we've covered about, you know, Muslim representation, diverse reads, what reading means to you. What are you hoping Australia will take away from Australia Reads as an event? Besides more reading, what do you hope that they will take away from this?
I'm hoping that they'll read outside of their comfort zone or outside of what they usually read. So, you know, venture out there and pick up. If you don't read fantasy, read fantasy. If you don't read crime, read crime. It's because it is pretty enriching. Like, you know, it's like you never know what you're gonna get from it until you actually try. And I do that a lot. Like I love getting surprised by something, by a genre that I wasn't expecting I would enjoy.
Yeah,
I think I was going to say the same thing. It's just, I mean, I know I do it myself. I do tend to stick to, I've got my favorite genres that I kind of tend to stick to. But I remember the first time I read a science fiction book, which I don't normally read, and I was just blown away. Like I was fully into it. And it was just looking at things from a different point of view, a point of view that you wouldn't normally look at, can be just mind-blowing. So yeah, definitely it's reading. But I think sometimes it's a bit hard as well to get people to actually read, because kids tend to do it more. Kids kind of go through school, they need to read, and they read at school and things like that. But when they kind of get into adulthood, they kind of, a lot of them tend to fall away. Like I've had people come to me and say, oh, I want to read, but I feel guilty. You know, I feel like if I'm reading, I need to read some
pastime, you know.
if I'm reading, I need to read something like you know, non-fiction, and something that's, you know, something that's going to improve my mind. And I'm thinking, well, you know, that's, of course we got to read, you know, things like that as well. But it's kind of a shame that adults seem to be able to leave it, or kind of have that guilt, that yeah, just that guilt, when we really shouldn't be having that, because even reading fiction is obviously improving your brain in lots of ways that we don't even, I mean, that they've done studies on it as well, in terms of how the brain operates when we're reading. So I think that's the message to get across. Even if you can't, you know, try to kind of remember when you were a younger kid and when you were able to read and you spent time reading, and just, you know, give yourself a little bit of time, allow yourself to find that pleasure again.
Yeah, I have a confession to make. When I was in school, I was a kid that didn't like to read. I was in school and I didn't like to read. I know, could you believe that me, of all people, didn't like reading when I was a kid? The only reason was because I was forced to read something I didn't like. And so when I actually grew up, and, you know, I went through uni and I went through high school, and there was no more textbooks or anything, and I had that time to choose what I wanted to read, and I found the sort of genre that I really, really enjoyed, that was when the whole avid reading started. So, but on that note, though, there were pretty good books that I did read as a kid by choice. So yeah, I wasn't that into it as a kid, but I hear exactly what Melati is saying, that, you know, find that time and you know, immerse yourself in that pleasure that you once knew as a kid. Yeah. Ozge, is the same for you? What are you hoping everyone will get out of Australia?
Read. Like,
Just do it.
It's actually interesting. Like, I was just thinking about Inda saying you can even do like a, you know, a TRPC challenge, read something out of your comfort zone, start something different. Pick up a author book. How about that? No, but that's an interesting challenge actually, because I just read a crime fiction book, and it's not a genre I normally read, and I was just shocked at how fast it moves, you know, because it's like,
are you enjoying it?
Yes, I am, but I'm like, I need to know who's done it, so I cheated. I skipped to the end and I read it.
What of those people?
I'm not, but it's actually interesting. Because we're gonna, inshallah, you know, have the festival. So the last book I read was literary fiction. I read Things book. Michael Ahmad.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I really want to read that one.
It is literary fiction, and I'm just like, wow, okay, this is a different, you know, genre altogether. Now, while I'm talking about stretching myself, I've actually been reading this one, and this this is I think a Muslim poet that got published, and it's, you know, it's, there's books here about, you know, there's one about, you know, the places I have prayed at. She has a poem like that, you know, and it was just like, so this was like kind of me, you know, stretching myself. So maybe let's go with that. Let's go with the TRPC challenge. Stretch yourself, read something different for the reading.
Read outside your comfort zone, yes. Well, we're nearly into time here, so I'd like to go around and find out what your favorite genres are at this stage. So for me, I love reading fantasy fiction, and I also tap into a lot of young adult and adult fantasy fiction. But deep down, what I absolutely adore are fantasy fiction books that are inspired or intertwined with cultural legends, which you can probably hear because that's what I'm writing. But that's what I'm really into. So let's do a round table. Inda, let's start with you. What's your favorite genre? What do you like reading?
Literary fiction. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, Melati?
I actually don't. I go through phases. So if I'm feeling really, really stressed, I mean, I'm a criminal lawyer, so a lot of my day is spent, you know, doing crime, prosecuting, and so when I get to the end of the day, I really just want something that I can calm down and just like look,
not pick up any crime fiction,
not think of bad stuff, you know. So when I'm feeling stressed, I go to romance. Nice. But what I like, I can't just do all romance because then it just gets too same. So I have to go with, I really love historical fiction as well, and fantasy as well. Yeah.
Oh yes, it's good.
I have two favorites. So I love the fantasy. So now I'm listening to the audiobook King of Scars, which I saw Melati finished, and I'm like,
I haven't finished it yet.
Okay. Yeah, the King of Scars. Like, I'm dying to discuss that with someone because there's some old, you know, characters making cameos, and I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, sorry. Yes, King of Scars. Yes. Yep, I did finish that one. Yes,
and there's a few cameos from the other books, and I'm like, I need to talk to someone about this.
This is what I meant by book community. Everybody gets excited, and then we have to talk about this. This is how friendships form. Yes.
I'm going to have a discussion with you after this.
Yes, okay, let me stay on and we'll have a chat about it. But I also, my young adults, I'm working on a young adult book as well. And I really like that, you know, just that contemporary realistic fiction of just watching coming of age, you know, young adults just going through like gritty time, and that's what I love reading that. So I sort of switch between that realistic young adult fiction because that's the area I'm writing in right now, and just the fantasy. I like listening to audiobooks because whenever my kids see me sit down with a book in my hand, it means, oh, mom's free, yay!
Yeah.
Yes, people fail to understand that when you're reading a book, you are actually doing something, especially when you know the fate of a fictional character that hangs in the balance. Like the laundry can wait.
Exactly. It's like I need to know what happened. Like it's okay.
Well, I have to. When we organize reading hours, because at Readers Review, we do a few of those anyway. We do a lot of drop everything in read sessions, and I'm hoping to do more of that with TRPC after we do the reading hour. But these reading hours are basically a time that you can plan ahead and go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to stop everything and I'm going to pick up that book and I'm going to read it. And I'm really excited that, you know, we're not going to just do that, but we're actually, you know, part of that and championing the reading as well. So to wrap this up, I just want to ask one last question. And again, this is for the panel to wrap this up. What is the one piece of I'll start that again. Excuse me, rewind. Yes. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is struggling to read and you want to bring them into the reading community? What is that one piece of advice that you would say? Anybody take the stage on that one?
I can start because, go talk to your librarians.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what we're there
good
for.
one.
It's
Yes,
called,
for sure.
I'll give you the technical name, but you can show up at the desk and be like, I would like some readers advisory right now. But seriously, that's what,
advisory line.
That's amazing.
yeah, seriously, you can email your, right now, I think web libraries are closed, like librarians, you can just email them and say, you can even just tell them what the movies that you like to watch or whatever it is you like. Because this is what we're trained for, we're trained professionals in telling you what you think we're going to enjoy. We have access to book lists, we have access to online databases, and we read quite widely. So we will find you. And I will tell you something. When we're at the library, I kind of like to do like, oh, let me try this, and maybe have a look at this, and have a look at this, and people kind of get,
It sounds like me at a bookstore. Oh my God.
It really is okay. Like, we don't mind. You just put the books back and go pick something else. This is how I say it. I'm as a shoe salesman, I'll just, you're not hurting my feelings if you don't like a particular shoe. People get really embarrassed about turning a book down, going, maybe not that one. I don't care. I didn't write the book. Don't turn my book down. But in any other book, it's like, just go ask your librarian. And seriously, it's my favorite kind of question to get is like, I don't know what to read next. It's like, ooh, welcome.
How much time you got? I love it. Melati, what would you say to someone who's struggling to read?
I'd say the same, similar. I mean, librarian is such a, definitely the best idea. But I think just pick something, go for what you're interested in, like what really interests you, and start there. Because it's all, really nice to kind of branch out when you've got that reading habit already into different things. But if you're struggling just to get in, go with what interests you first, and whatever that might be. If I don't know, say if you like hockey, go for some, a book about hockey or something like that. Just something that interests you first, that you would actually find interesting. And
reading is reading. If you're reading a graphic novel, that's still reading. If you're reading a nonfiction book, that's still reading. If you're reading a biography, that's still reading. If you're reading, Regency romance, that's still reading. Reading is reading. Absolutely, I'm with you, Melati.
Yeah, for sure.
And even on an audio book as well, that is still reading. If you're in a car and you're driving because you can't sit down and read, that is still reading as well. And you can get amazing books through Audible as well that way.
And your library. Your library has free audiobooks. Don't forget, we have borrow books, we have e-audiobooks. You can all get into your library. You don't need to pay Amazon.
First off, I love it. Inda, but not least.
What would I say? Yeah, I agree with all those points, and pick something that's not going to be painful. So graphic novels if you're more of a picture person, audiobooks if you have to have your hands free. Have a book with you all the time. Apparently that's what Stephen King does. So he doesn't have a problem with reading because he reads so many, but he reads so much. Like if you read his memoir on writing, and at the end there's like a list of books he read, and it's like pages long. But apparently he reads all the time. Like somebody caught him in a cinema about to watch a movie. Those 15 minutes when there's ads and stuff, the movie hasn't started. He's reading a book. So there's with all those little 15 minutes, he can probably finish a lot of books. So yeah, just have one with you all the time.
Yeah, guilty of that. I'm always guilty of that. I remember I had to take my mom somewhere. It's just oh, it's going to be a while, and I'm just flashing the book at her, and she's like, I have my book.
I read a lot now. I used to be such a snob with books. I'm like, if I can't smell it and hold it in my hand, it's not a book. But now after kids, I'm like, just few minutes of reading time, going to the grocery store alone is my me time, and I pick the longest line I could possibly find. People go oh, come. I'm like, no, I'm good. I need the longest line possible so I could just pick that time. So I could just be reading on my phone while waiting to check out, because that's reading time. Like Inda said, just for those few minutes, that's reading time. If you don't think you have time to read, you do. How much time do you spend on Instagram?
Thank you.
I'm scrolling.
Doom scrolling, yes.
I'm guilty of that as well, but seriously, but just stop. I think was Melati that posted it, or was it Inda? One of you posted the Australian reading hour things. Just stop scrolling. Just read a book.
Just reading.
Yeah, stop doom scrolling, read a book. Look, it was fantastic to talk to the three of you. All three of you are very inspiring women, and it's amazing to hear your experience with reading and with the work that you have published. So I'm hoping I can follow your your trail. I'm really, really hoping I can follow on and your path. I would like to take this time to thank Ozge Alkan, Inda Ahmad Zahri, and Melati Lum for spending this time with me and talking to us as Australia Reads ambassadors and members of the Right Pen Collective, and also, above all, my friends. Happy Australia Reads. It's very exciting. Just a reminder to everybody that Australia Reads is on Tuesday, I think it's Tuesday, the 14th of September. And both the Right Pen Collective and Readers Review are hosting a reading hour between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. Australian Easter Time. But look, if you can't join us, then it's fine. Pick an hour of that day and just read and enjoy it. So I want to thank everybody for being here and talking to me today.
Thank you, Annie.
Reads.
Thank you for hosting us, Annie. It's a joy being interviewed by you.
Happy Australia Reads.
Australia Reads.
Australia
Happy reading.
Reads.